right attitude is to say, okay, open my eyes, let me see how you want to use me where I am right this moment.
I'm still wearing the same shirt from the last episode, but that's fine.
So, okay, God, what's my next move? What do you want me to do now?
And this story has come up at least once by now, but that led to me meeting Base Camp Hope. Hey, everybody. Thank you for coming back to Base Camp Hope. We're excited to have you all here again. As you can see, I'm still wearing the same shirt from the last episode, but that's fine. It's nice to knock a couple of these out in a row. You know, John had mentioned the last one. I live about an hour and a half away. And so it's kind of hard to get together regularly to, say, record like an episode a week sort of thing. So we knock a couple out, and I think just knowing that, too, is kind of a fun little fact in how some podcasts get recorded. So you'll see some people wearing the same outfits. Yeah. It's not that I wore this like a month later, though it is a fun shirt.
Yeah.
But today we're kind of looking at talking about an important topic, at least a topic that seemed important to you guys. We had discussed it a little bit in days prior to recording, is a veteran's purpose outside the military.
Yeah.
That seems like something from what I've heard. I'm not a veteran myself, so just that disclaimer up front. But hopefully that doesn't discount. Don't turn this off. John is a veteran.
Yep.
Diane, as well as other people that we bring on here. But something I've heard from veteran friends that I have and others that I've just talked with is, what do I do after the military? I'm having a hard time getting a job, converting my skills over from being in the military to get hireable here. But also, I was so used to the order, being told what to do, yes, sir, and then going about my business per the organization of the military. Mm-hmm. I'm done now. How am I supposed to live?
Yeah.
What do I do? I'm not surrounded by my brotherhood anymore.
Yeah.
John, you were in the military and you've since retired.
Yep.
Can you kind of take us on that journey yourself, please?
Yeah. So when it comes to military service, there's this idea of, you know what Stockholm syndrome is, right? Where you get used to an environment, you're used to that structure, used to, there are two groups that I can really think of that go through this. One is people who are in prison. The other is military.
I wouldn't often relate those two super closely together,
right.
But okay.
But it's so like military, like you talking about, you have the structure, you know when to be there, and what you're doing when you're there, or like, what they tell you what to wear every day. It's just, it's very highly structured, it's very highly organized, and it has to be, right? Because it's a large organization. It has to be. You have to know what to do and when to do it, how to do it. That's how the military generally is. Then when you're released from that environment and now you're out in the world, what do you do now? So it's like, I don't have the purpose that I had anymore, or at least I don't feel like I have the purpose anymore. I don't have anyone looking over my shoulder all the time, telling me what I have to do, any of that stuff. So if I want to sleep in till 9 o'clock in the morning, no one's going to call me and say, hey, where are you? Obviously, unless you have a job. But for me personally, finding purpose after the military, and I think this is true for most folks, I would think, is finding something productive to do, be it a job or something else. Because we're not made to just sit around and do nothing. We definitely have to have a purpose in life. Otherwise, you just end up wasting away. And, I've known of people who that's what they do after they join the military, or after they get out of the military, rather. They just sit around and they don't really do much with their lives. And I think as veterans, we get a lot of skills in the military that do actually translate over to civilian life. And that's not necessarily what your job was, but it's things like being accountable, showing up on time, or being early, being thorough in your work. There's all these different things that we gain, these life skills, really, honestly, that we gain. Because most guys, they join, when they're 18 years old. maybe a little older than that. I actually joined when I was 22, so I was a little older when I joined the Air Force. But you learn a lot of great life skills that you can use, and believe it or not, employers love military folks because they know we're going to get the job done. They know we're going to be accountable. They know that if we mess up, at least for the most part, right, we're going to admit to our mistake and be like, it was my mistake, and I will fix it, or whatever the case may be. So generally, that's it's a really good thing to have, and it's a good thing to keep in your back pocket, so to speak. So living that purpose-filled life is highly important, and it's just like being a Christian. It's the same idea, I think, too. It's like we're called to a greater purpose than just just ourselves, kind of thing. So yeah.
So you brought in a really important aspect, I believe, which is relationship with Christ.
Yeah.
And for anyone watching and anyone new, John is a Christian, I'm a Christian, Diane, we believe in the Lord, and the relationship with the Lord is a huge part of our lives. But it also kind of helps to give more direction, right?
Absolutely.
When you have that relationship, though you may not exactly know who you are, the nice thing with Christ is he's not a crutch.
No.
But he helps us to understand, because he's our creator, what we're meant to do. And also helps us to deal with things from the past. And I know that a lot of veterans deal with PTSD and the different things that they face while in the military. But both in life, we aren't just meant to sit around, and in relationship with Christ, we aren't meant to sit around. We're meant to take action, which I believe veterans are amazing at.
Yeah.
Is being able to take action effectively. Can you tell me a little bit like how your relationship with the Lord helped you after you got out of the military and kind of helping direct your purpose? Or maybe helping you kind of rediscover who you were in the process?
So one of the big things was, at least for me, was I knew I couldn't just sit around and do nothing, right? And obviously there's a lot of prayer involved in that. So, because the circumstances I got out of the military was they were doing forest reshaping. And so I was, forced to retire early. So normally when most folks retire, you have about 2 years to retire, and that allows you time to get everything set up, right? Because you kind of look that far ahead and you know what your retirement date's going to be and everything else. I had 6 months from the time they told me that I was going to have to retire to actually retiring. So, and that's not a long time at all. It's, so and it's impossible to cram 2 years into 6 months. It just can't happen. So there was a bit of the feeling of the rug was pulled out from under my feet kind of thing. And I've known people, like, they do have the 2 years to plan and they still feel that way. And maybe because they don't necessarily take advantage of that time, which I wish I had. But so there was a lot of being in that circumstance, a lot of prayerful consideration. I was like, okay, God, what's my next move? What do you want me to do now? Kind of thing. And wherever you lead me, I'm going to be faithful to that kind of thing. So, and there were, it's like trying to use some of the resources that I had available to me, like the Veteran Services Coordinator, went to a couple of job fairs for veterans and things like that. So that did lead to some jobs for me. So I ended up working for Dish Network for a little while. If you don't like heights, that is not the job for you. I do not like heights.
So it's not the job for you then?
It was not. I did it just because it was money coming in, right? And that's really, honestly, why I did it. But I knew that wasn't like a long-term solution by any stretch of the imagination. But then I ended up applying for the post office, and now I work for the post office, which was a great career move for me because I don't have to get up on ladders. But, so, it's and it felt like the right thing to do. It felt like the right fit. So like where God was calling me, what he was calling me to do, which sounds like an odd thing to say. Look, God led me to the post office. It's like, well, but God will provide if you're willing to step out in faith, kind of thing. So
That kind of goes back to the obedience from the last episode too.
yeah, absolutely.
Though it might not always make sense and it looks daunting.
Yeah.
If you're obedient, the Lord makes a way.
Yeah, absolutely. He does.
I was curious as you were talking, was there anything that you kind of kept doing post-military life that helped to smooth out the transition from military to civilian?
Showing up where I'm supposed to be.
And that's a pretty good one.
Well, it's like they say, like I forget what the phrase is, but it's something like, 90% of success is showing up, kind of thing, right? And one of the things I've also learned is success is different to different people, because by and large, or I think a lot of people think of success as a lot of money, a great big house, lots of fancy cars. That's not success to me, right? To me, success is, being able to provide for my family, being able to put a house over our, a shelter over our heads, clothes on our back, food on the table. That's success to me. And being a good father and a good husband. Like that is success, because you can do all of those other things. You can have the great big house and the fancy car and everything else, but fail miserably at life. I'm sure there are a lot of examples out there, but so, and I think being faithful to God, and him, and knowing that he's going to be faithful to you will lead you to that path of success as well. So, a transition in life or a season in life, it can be easy, it can be difficult. There are a lot of different things that can happen. But for me, one of the most difficult things was transitioning from the military to civilian life. Especially dealing with, some civilians. It's like, because in the military, generally, when somebody says they're going to do something, they do it. Civilians, it's like a 60-40 proposition. It's like sometimes they'll do it, sometimes they won't, kind of thing. So it's, that was, sometimes that can be really frustrating, especially if you're used to people telling you something at face value. Hey, I'll do this, and then they don't follow through, and it's like, okay, why did you tell me you're going to do it if you had no intention of following through on it, kind of thing. So, and I think that's another thing, like a skill wise too, is like follow through. Most veterans have is like they'll actually follow through whatever it was that they said they're going to actually accomplish, or whatever they're going to do. Or you give them a task, generally they're going to do it. Which I think that's another thing that employers really like. From veterans is, like, oh, you told me to do this? Okay, cool. I got it. And you can give them the ball and they'll usually run with it, and, they'll get it done. So.
Okay. And how Christ kind of helped you along that way. You dig into that a tiny bit.
So the way, it's being faithful to that, to whatever he wants you to do, I think is the main thing. Like, so, and it was kind of that, it's, at some points, like having those moments of doubt, and you're like, is this really what you want me to do? It's like, I'm especially like working for the post office, it was like, it felt like the right thing to do, but at the same time, it's like, this is really what you want me to do? Do you really want me to go, I'm a letter carrier for the post office. So it's like, okay, so I'm essentially stuffing mail into mailboxes, but God is faithful because, and the thing is, so like I have a lot of amazing customers on my route, and a few that I've been able to bless, and, and then they blessed me in return. So it's just like, so I think sometimes too, for Christians, they get this idea in their head that, oh, since I'm a Christian, I have to be in ministry. That's not true. Like, in ministry, as far as like being a pastor or being a leader of a church or being a deacon or something like that, you don't have to do those things, because God, it's one of those ideas that God meets you where you are. He will use you where you are. So, ministering to people doesn't mean standing up and preaching. Ministering to people means you see a need, you meet a need, kind of thing. So, and I think, if you allow God to open your eyes, he will show you those opportunities rather than, because sometimes it's easy to just stick your head in the sand and just say, oh, I'm just doing this thing because God told me to do it. And you stick your head in the sand and just, that's not the right attitude. The right attitude is to say, okay, open my eyes and let me see how you want to use me where I am right this moment. And to me, so that was kind of one of the things that God really, led me to, is to be able to do those things, because I think otherwise you're just kind of wasting your opportunity, or you're wasting your potential.
And so I think too, if you're someone that's feeling kind of lost for what to do after the military, is just wherever you are in that moment. All right. Just got out of the military, not quite sure what to do. If you believe in God, if you don't believe in God, just stop for a second. And this is kind of a challenge. I feel like veterans enjoy a good challenge, right?
Absolutely.
A challenge to you. In that moment, you're feeling lost, going, what do I do next? Stop. And for 5 to 10 minutes, I want you just, even if you don't believe in God, just go, God, here I am. My name is so-and-so. I've heard of you, first-time caller sort of thing. I need some direction. I submit. And then just listen in silence. And follow your, the next thoughts. And I would be really interested to see what happens, because kind of what we talked about in the last episode is to hear from God actually isn't that hard.
Right.
Like Pharaoh himself back in the day didn't believe in God, but guess what? He heard from God. Crazy to know. Blew my mind with that one recently. But you could get direction. And as a result of that, I'll be honest, God's going to pull you in. He's going to grab your curiosity. He's going to pull you in because he's meeting you where you're at.
Yep.
But then I think you're going to get your next step.
Yep.
And I've discovered that in my own life. Not that I was a veteran and I felt lost, but I've gone, God, I don't know what to do next. What do I do? And I've just stopped and listened. And then honestly, where my creativity went next, I was like, I'm going to give that a try. And all of a sudden that led to the next thing or the next thing. Or, God, what should we do? And then I listened to my wife's appetite for coffee.
Yeah.
And this story has come up at least once by now. But that led to me meeting Base Camp Hope.
Yep.
Because God works in mysterious ways.
Absolutely, he does.
And here we are.
Yeah.
Another step.
Yeah.
After I didn't leave the military, but I left my job.
Yeah.
Which honestly feels a little bit like the military sometimes, if it's bad enough.
Which is a major step of faith in and of itself.
But I got the next direction. And it's been a fun journey.
Yeah.
So if you're feeling lost, again, whether you believe in God or not, give that a try.
Yeah.
And see kind of what happens next. And I'd actually encourage you to comment or maybe send Basecamp Hope an email at basecamphope@gmail.com.
Yep.
With your story. And I think it'd be fun to actually hear more of them, maybe one day get you guys on here and to have you tell us yourselves.
Yeah.
Because I know veterans everywhere, they're all dealing with different experiences, different backgrounds, different cultural backgrounds, family backgrounds, belief backgrounds. But the common thing they have, one point in time, they're in the military.
Yeah.
And any one of your stories could help someone or someone's that's feeling so lost and feeling kind of hopeless.
Yeah.
And I know a big part of Basecamp Hope is to help save, is it called the 22?
Yep. 20. Yeah. That we didn't come up with that, but it's the idea of 22 veterans a day, commit suicide. So kind of thing. I think that's the average number is what they say. So saving the 22, there are few different organizations out there that really talk about that. So I know we haven't talked about it that much, but yeah, it's definitely an important thing, and it's always kind of in the back of your mind, at least in the back of my mind as far as like a veteran. It's like thinking about those guys that are they come to that place in their life, and maybe you're there right now as you've come across this video. It's like, in Sean, you talked about hearing from God. That doesn't always mean verbally, because in my own personal experience, I've never verbally heard God talk to me, but he does talk in other ways. He'll talk through circumstances. He'll talk through people. He'll talk through, you might be watching a TV show and something will happen to the TV show and you're like, okay, and a lot of times it's more than just one instance. Sometimes it's repeated instances where God is talking to you, but it's a matter of how well are you listening to what he is showing you, and that's really true in my own life. Sometimes we're stubborn. Sometimes we just don't want to hear. Sometimes we don't acknowledge that God's talking to us. But if you're willing to go to that place and say, like you're saying, like just sit in silence, sit in a quiet room by yourself and just say, okay, God, here I am. What do you want to do? Or what do you want me to do? Kind of thing. And God will honor that. If you're coming from an honest place, he will definitely honor that. And, and he'll be faithful to see it through. And that's like, even if you don't believe in him, God will still communicate with you, as long as you're coming from a genuine place.
That's true. And is Base Camp Hope a place that people can come to kind of help?
Absolutely. Yeah.
What are some of the resources we have available for that?
So we have, the YouTube channel, obviously, if you found it. So you're in one of the right places. Also through our Facebook page, our Basecamp Gmail account, basecamphope@gmail.com. You can email us. You can reach out to us through our Instagram account. So there are different ways you can get a hold of us, and we would love to. I mean, on our Facebook page, there is a phone number. I don't know the phone number off the top of my head.
I'll just put it right here.
Yeah. Call now. But you can get a hold of us in different ways, and we'd love to pray with you. We'd love to talk to you, whether it's through on the phone, through Facebook messages, or whatever the case may be. We would absolutely love to do that, and help point you in the right direction. So.
And then are there ways that people can help support, whether a veteran or not?
Yes, actually there are. One of the major ways that we have is, so we have these wooden coins. They're laser engraved on both sides. For Base Camp Hope, they're $10 a piece. We would love to send you one of these things. I think it's a really cool little reminder to have. You can just keep it in your pocket or on your bookshelf or something like that. And you can pray for us and pray for the veterans that we're helping. So I think it'd be really awesome. Another thing we can do is we have these military edition Bibles. These are a New International Version. We have two different covers. So we have this traditional camo, and then we have a desert camo. And these are free. We'd love to send you one. And, so that would be something that we would love to do for you guys. So
if you're a veteran or you know some veterans, hit subscribe, follow us on Instagram, and like us on Facebook. But we definitely want to hear from you and be a resource, whether you're dealing with PTSD, you're feeling kind of hopeless and kind of lost, you need some additional direction. Just having those conversations can often help you figure out the process to get there and find that purpose after leaving the military, or you need help with your family. Again, reach out to the number, give us a call, send us an email at basecamphope@gmail.com, or reach out to us via social media. But we look forward to seeing you next time here at Base Camp Hope.
Yeah, thanks for tuning in.